Section 6, understanding the single responsibility principle and creating a microservice using our boilerplate template. Till now, we've been building the Sweat Manager microservice, and we saw little semblance of the Reports Manager. It was just a client. This section, we're going to split the functionality of Sweat in the Sweat Manager and the user in the User Manager and build two microservices. Now, let's first understand the single responsibility principle. Realize that everyone can do only one job well. Let's not mix everything. And this is where the microservice ecosystem comes into the picture. The Sweat Manager will handle all the Sweat calls. The User Manager handles all the users. But since there's a correlation between the Sweat and the user, they need to communicate with each other too. Now, we will split this functionality as we go along, but you have to remember that we don't ever go overboard. Which means do not try to split the user functionality even further into user profile management, then user Sweat management, because it becomes a big mess. So know where to draw the boundary. Usually I work with the principle of context. And this is not the Go context that we learned about earlier. This is more to do with one resource. If I'm talking about a user, let a user service manage all the user details. If I'm talking about Sweat, let all the Sweat be managed by one microservice. Any communication between them can be handled using gRPC or RESTful APIs. So this is typically what I call a boilerplate. A boilerplate for a microservice with all our stuff in place, the configuration, the logging, the functionality, the documentation, everything. This is as simple as it gets. Now, a professional, large-scale microservice will have a lot more information in it. However, there are two ways to look at this. In this particular tutorial, I have ensured that we keep everything under the service. You may want to change it into domain. It's up to you, as long as your code is easily organized and you are able to manage it properly. Manage the core functionality such that it is maintainable, it is flexible, and it is easily extensible. So let's see what the code looks like. Let's start with the usermanager.go, that is the main file. This particular boiler template has commented out gRPC. If and when you use it, just uncomment this line and you should be able to use the gRPC. You can see that this is almost exactly as similar as the Sweat Manager. But the difference is that we have kept it very clean. Now, let's see the routing services. As you can see here, this has only one boilerplate template for the ping functionality with version management. Later on in the videos, we'll also see how to handle multiple versions, because at one particular point, you do want to deprecate the functionality of the user management that we did earlier in the Sweat Manager, right? So stay tuned for that. Let's now look at the dependencies. Currently, I have only the storer. And let's look at the main handler, which is the ping handler implementation. So far, it is extremely basic, and this is the boilerplate template that you can use to build any microservice.